Hey, everybody. Before I jump into our message today, I want to talk about the kingdom assignment of Vitalpoint Church and the vision of who we are. Last weekend, I had the privilege of visiting Forest and Grand Bend, and I got to tell you, to hear the stories is so amazing. I am so grateful for what God is doing. Our kingdom assignment is planting VPC sites in small towns. And wow, so exciting, so good. I just want to mention this with this. When we give, when we step into obedience in our giving and honoring God through Vitalpoint Church with our money, our resources, it fuels this. Like to realize that, yes, our hearts move towards the kingdom work when we give. Jesus talks about that. But then to also recognize how much it adds fuel to what God is doing across VPC and to meet people and to interact with people that are in our environment because of giving and to be able to see what God's doing. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. Shout out to Grand Bend and Forest. Thank you for hosting. It's so good to be visiting there. All right, so I want to jump in on our conversation today because we're going to talk about singleness. We're in this series, God's Design for Family, and we want to talk to this topic of singleness. Now, it's interesting. When we do messages around Vitalpoint Church, maybe you're new today and you're not sure of how we do these things, but oftentimes we want to hit topics and teachings from the Bible that move us all towards, yes, better understanding Jesus and what it means to follow him and live by the power of the Spirit of God in our lives. And we often approach these topics in a way that covers a wide range of people. Like you might be churched, unchurched, you follow Jesus, you don't, you might be an atheist, agnostic, whatever. And so we want to make sure that we cover the broad sense of that. And we do, I think, a fairly decent job of that. Every so often, we hit topics that seem very laser focused, like the conversation today on singleness. Now, it'd be very easy for some of us to check out and to kind of see this conversation and go, well, I'm married, I'm dating, I'm not single, it doesn't apply to me. But here's the thing. This conversation is absolutely crucial for our church. And the reason is that oftentimes, in my observation, not just within Vitalpoint Church, but church in general, over 32 years of pastoring and leadership in church world, is that oftentimes singles are relegated to a lesser degree in the sense of importance within the life of a church. And so sometimes what happens is we kind of look down on singles because, well, you're not married, blah, 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 you don't have kids or whatever. And I think it's doing this a disservice. And so my heart is that I want us to elevate this topic of singleness within the context of Vitalpoint in particular, because singles add value and we need to honor them, and they actually contribute to the health of our church, which is so important. The other side of this too is that for some of us as singles that are in our environment, you actually can have a sort of a negative perspective on yourself as well. It's not just married looking down. Singles sometimes have a false understanding of their part and their role within the life of the church. And so what I'm praying and hoping for in this conversation is to elevate this topic and this conversation in a way that's beautiful. Honor and value and so on. So as we lean in together, my hope and my prayer is that by the end of the conversation, which by the way, I've got something special happening at the end of this message, we're going to wrap up in a very special way, is that we will look at this from a different perspective and have some beauty and awe around it. So for those of you who are single, maybe you've never been married, or maybe you find yourself in a scenario, in a situation where maybe the rug was pulled out from under you, or maybe you're divorced now, or you've lost a loved one, or something's just happened in your life, now you're single. My hope is that you'll be really encouraged by this conversation and that you'll find some good hope and strength in this. Now, the Bible talks a fair bit about singleness. If you were with us last week, David, our teaching team member from Exeter, shout out to Exeter, he talked about dating is not in the Bible. Everyone kind of went, what? How could he say that? It's true. It's not. Relationships are, but dating is not. But singleness is, and marriages too, but singleness in particular. And I want to take us to a section in the Bible in 1 Corinthians where this author, the Apostle Paul, wrote this letter to the church of Corinthians and church of Corinth. And you need to understand, they're a hot mess. Like there is some serious issues in this church. And so this letter is literally him bringing correction And that's what Paul would do at times. The Apostle Paul would write these letters to bring correction and clarity, and they're getting all kind of wonky. They're getting away from the cross, or getting away from honoring God and from a sexual point of view. And it's just a hot mess. So you have to consider that in the context of what I'm going to read for us as we talk about singleness. So I'm going to take you to 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 6 through 9, and then we're going to unpack this and teach through this. It says this: "Now as a concession, not a command, I say this, I wish that all were as I myself am, but each has his own gift from God, one of one kind and one of another. To the unmarried and the widows, I say that it is good for them to remain single as I am, but if they cannot exercise self-control, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion." Now, what we have to begin to understand in the first pass of the reading of this is, he's giving room for this. He says it's a concession, not a command. And so he's broadening and expanding on these things. But the first thing that we begin to realize about singleness is that it's a gift. It's a gift from the Lord. Some theologians would even say it's a calling. And we see this in the phrase, in the line where he says, "But each has his own gift from God, one of one kind and one of another." What Paul is doing is he's leveling the playing ground, or he's leveling the ground for both single and married as a gift from God. He's not talking about one being more important than the other. He's recognizing that God, and who God is, recognizes that God gives a gift and his grace is available to those who are single and to those who are married. It's not like when you finally get married, you feel like you finally arrived and now you're important and so on and so forth. No, what Paul is doing, he said, both are equally important. He also gives clarity to something very interesting, because he begins to talk about sex within marriage and sex within marriage, and that idea of not being able to control yourself. And then he goes on to this idea of understanding that the gift is also in celibacy. Now, don't panic. Some of you are like praying, please, God, don't give me the gift of celibacy, because if you're praying that, you probably don't have it. But it's this idea of understanding the power and the depth of this beyond just the surface of singleness and marriage. There's a part of this where we begin to realize there's something very significant with this gift. Now, the gift here is not about a spiritual gift, just so we're clear. It's not like he describes in other parts of Corinthians where he's giving clarity to spiritual gifts. What he's talking about here in the reference to the gift is that there's a spirit-given capacity to singleness. So there's this supernatural ability that someone has and a capacity to live as a single person. He actually says that I wish that everyone was like I am, because Paul wasn't married, right? And so Paul's recognizing that there's a spirit-given capacity to live out this calling, to live out this gift that God has given to him. Now, he's writing to help us understand that the grace of gift, this grace and gift is both available for singles and married. So it's not like, oh boy, if I'm married, then I'm out of luck here. No, that's not what he's talking about here. He's just trying to drive home the power and the truth that God is the one who gives this gift. So this means that God sees great value and worth within the functionality of the body of Christ. Both are significant, both have value, both are equal in the sense of the gift of singleness and the gift of marriage. Now, when I begin to look at this a little more clearer, and I began to study this, I began to understand a fundamental truth about singleness that I think Paul is trying to communicate to us. Is that if God is the one who gives this gift of singleness, or this calling of singleness, then that means this powerful truth that God becomes the source of the gift. That God actually becomes the strength within the capacity of the gift that he gives to singleness. And this is interesting because when you look at the abundant life or the satisfied life that we're all searching for, we recognize that the grace that he gives through this gift is the actual source that we draw on in our lives. And we talked about this last week when we were talking about dating. If we go through life thinking that another person is to complete us, right? Hallmark movies and Hallmark cards, right? You complete me, or you're my soulmate. Right? That's a dangerous mentality, because you're actually putting an expectation on another person to be that source of satisfaction and completion. And that's a dangerous place to be in when it comes to relationships. So we have to recognize what Paul is doing here in the gift of singleness. It's not like a holding pattern. It's actually a holy calling, which is a little bit different, right? It's not like you just are single and you're like just doing loops around life, just kind of waiting for that day where that special person comes into your life and then you're going to be complete, right? Or then I'll be whole. No. What he's doing is he's saying, I am the source. So it's not a holding pattern, it's a holy calling. It's kind of like, I was thinking about this. It could be an awful illustration, but I was thinking about an extension cord, and the extension cord has no power in it, but when you plug it into the right source, power flows through it. And I think when I look at whether you're gift of singleness or marriage, there's that source that is available to us that we live out in our lives. It gives us the power and the spiritual capacity to live this. Now, when I began to take a little bit closer look at this, I began to realize that I began realizing that this is the heart of many of us. Like, it doesn't matter if you're single or married, we're always trying to find that thing, right? We're trying to find that thing that satisfies us or that thing that fills us up. And unfortunately, as I talk to singles over the years, is that sometimes singles think that the marriage is the answer, right? We think that the marriage will be the solution to this feeling of emptiness that I have in my life. If God would just bring that right person. There's nothing wrong with praying that, but we recognize that we have to be careful we don't put too much high expectation on the reality of this other person being my actual source, because that's not how we're created. Yes, we're created for relationship and friendship and so on, but the source of life, where we find the goodness and the satisfaction in life, is actually found in the one who gives this gift, and that's the Lord himself, right? And that relationship with Jesus. And so we have to be careful that we don't put it on another flawed, broken human being, because that's not good. Like, that's an unreasonable expectation. We can't do this. I mean, we could go a bit farther than this. We could even interview some really healthy marriages in the life of a church. They'll tell you the same thing. It's like, yeah, like I can't expect, even as great as this marriage might be, like even I'm just thinking about this now, but my marriage is very strong, and we're in a season of strength right now. And as beautiful as that is, I can't rely upon my wife to be that source of that internal satisfaction, because she's a flawed, broken human being just like I am. So the source of our singleness, or the source of our marriage, and I think this is why Jesus actually says, seek first the kingdom of heaven, right? It's that recognition that he is my source. He is the one that I plug into by faith. He is the one that will ultimately bring the joy and the contentment that I'm searching for in my life. And so singleness is recognizing that, wow, I can live into this as a calling or a season of singleness, dependent more on the Lord in this season, because the recognition of who he is in my life. And this freedom that he begins to bring into our lives, and the joy that he begins to bring into our lives. Now, he does go into a bit of the idea of the passion and sexual fulfillment and celibacy. And I already touched on this a little bit, but that's why I always chuckle at that last part of the verse where he says, if you can't have self-control, then it's better to marry, right? It's like, a lot of couples use that part of a verse that's in a dangerous way. It's not at the neglect of wisdom. It's not a neglect of counsel of others. Like, you have to be super careful with this, because I know a lot of people that have made some really bad choices in marriage because the physical part of it was so good, right? But they couldn't control themselves, couldn't keep their clothes on. So they're like, oh, I guess we should just get married. Bad idea, right? It's like, we have to be super careful with wisdom in that. But there's also the recognition of that Jesus is the ultimate one that fulfills us. So we see what Paul's trying to do here. Now, what Paul does in this as well is he actually refers to this word good. There's this word good in there that this beautiful word that he begins to describe of being single and widows, and it's good to remain unmarried and to remain single. And that word good is not about morally better or holier. He's actually using this word as an expression of beautifully fitting into, or advantageous, or commendable, or beneficial. And I think that that's an important word for us, because the word good has such depth to it, because we begin to see it from a perspective of God being my source, the Lord being the source of the gift that he's given to me, where I find the strength and the capacity, or you as single, you find that capacity. But then there's this move that Paul does so beautifully into another recognition of this farther down in the chapter, where he's actually expresses this in a couple other phrases in verses 32 through 36, where he begins to, I'm not going to read it for you because it's a bit long, but where he begins to talk about the distractions of marriage and the anxieties that come in obligations and divided attention and so on. Because then I started realizing another piece of the singleness in which Paul refers to, you can read it for yourself later in 1 Corinthians 7, 32 through 35. It's, he begins to describe this beautiful expression of the gift of singleness is the ability to live into a greater mission, maybe not even greater mission, but to lean into a mission, to engage in a way in your singleness that someone who's married can't. Like that's what he's talking about in these verses. And so you begin to realize that all of a sudden there's this beautiful embracing of this calling that allows you to lean into kingdom work in a way without the responsibility and obligation of marriage or kids or family. Now, listen, just so we're clear, you can engage in mission, married and kids and everything too. But what Paul is trying to drive home here is you don't have to be wrapped up and pulled in different directions. I think that's what he's trying to call us out here is, and he's not even condemning responsibilities. He's just describing the inevitable pull of relational obligations. And he's just speaking, truthfully, I think he's just speaking to the practicality of this. Like just the realization of how practical this is. And so you begin to see all of a sudden, okay, source and mission for someone in singleness. But here's the problem. There's a problem that I think begins to emerge in this is that the killer to singleness is to believe that singleness is a life sentence. And then you live in the muck and the mire of singleness, robbing yourself of the ability to lean into the source and the mission that God is calling you to. Like if we mope around in the mud of singleness, you can't move almost. It's like sometimes I have these dreams like I can't run. I know, they're terrible. And it's that if you get stuck in the mud and the muck and the mire of a posture of singleness where, God, why'd you do this to me? Or how this is not fair. But the truth is, if you find a sense of freedom, then you can actually live into the beauty and the awe of it. And I think for us as a church, at Vitalpoint Church, I think we have to do a better job of elevating the voices of those who are single and say, no, you matter. You're significant here. And if we're married, we shouldn't put unreasonable expectations on someone who's single and kind of look down on them. Well, you're not married. So no. If it is true that God has truly given the gift of singleness to some and gift of marriage to others, and we need to give our heads a shake and just kind of go, God, this is such a beautiful expression of what you've called us. I mean, the Apostle Paul was single. Jesus was single. How powerful it is that we can help people who have this gift of singleness rise up and embrace what God has given to them and to celebrate them and to honor them. Now, I fully recognize that here I am trying to teach the Bible, which is my primary responsibility around here as a church, is to be the primary communicator of the scriptures. And I try to do my best on that and our teaching team. And I recognize that it seems kind of odd that here I am as a married guy, I've been married for 35 years, talking about singleness. Some of you are like, what does he have to say about singleness? And I get it. You didn't have to write this. I felt this. I felt like I couldn't give the heart behind this. So I had this crazy idea. Thankfully, the team went for it. It's kind of a last minute idea. I actually reached out to Lisa Hockey. She is our family ministry director, and she's single. And she holds a senior leadership position in the life of our church. She oversees all the children's ministries across all of our locations. I got to tell you, if you've not met her, you need to. She's amazing. And I approached her and I said, Lisa, I've walked with you and seen you in your journey with this, being single. Would you be okay with talking to our church about this? And she didn't hesitate. She said yes. So what I want to do in the wrapping up of this talk is I sat down with her and I interviewed her, asking her some questions about her journey of embracing the gift of a season of singleness in her life. And so would you please welcome Lisa? Lisa, why don't you share a bit of your background, your story for us so we can get a bigger picture of who you are?
Yeah, so all my life, I really just wanted a husband, really just wanted kids. It was like what success in life looked like for me. And yeah, a lot of kids actually. And then, over time, I really wanted to make that happen.
Yeah.
And so found myself in lots of relationships or situationships or whatever.
Situationships.
Situationships.
Okay. You gotta be careful how you say that.
Yeah, that's what the young people say.
Yeah.
Just wanting to make that happen. And that was all like before I knew Jesus.
Okay.
And then ended up finding Jesus, about 10 years ago. And I really just wanted to focus on my relationship with him.
Yeah.
I was like, put that kind of dream aside, focus on my relationship with him. But then after a few years, I started to see people around me that are single or getting married.
Right.
There's people that are single getting pursued, and then I wasn't. And I just started to like think about, possibly just having conversations with God. Like, is this punishment for all the things I had done in the past? And he really revealed to me that it was protection in my life at that time.
So good.
And then I just found myself in this just this season where I just came to this truth that the dream that I wanted wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And that I had to grieve that dream that I once had. And that God wasn't just going to take that away. Like, he wasn't just going to present a guide to me because that's what I wanted.
Right.
But that he was just going to meet me there in the grief that I had, to just kind of,
Can I back you up for a quick second? Yeah. Because there's something that you brushed by so quickly that I think is important, that you shared with me before we press record.
Yeah.
When you were growing up, your family had a phrase for you.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But then there was also this mindset that you had that could be defined sort of as what success would look like for you. Those two things. First one?
Yeah. So my family and those around me would say I was a housewife in training.
Okay.
So that was kind of what was going to happen for me, was I was going to be a stay-at-home mom and be a wife to a lot of kids. And that's just kind of what I thought success was in life. Like, I wasn't going to be fulfilled, or I wasn't going to be happy unless I had that in my life.
Because that's part of what we talked about in this message, was oftentimes we live with this thinking that success or my life is complete when I find that person.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with wanting and desiring that, but I think the high level of expectation of that, right? But that was part of your journey.
Yeah, and I think ultimately we have a desire in each and every one of us to be loved, to be seen, to be known. Yeah. And then that's just kind of what we think is going to give us that. Right. And so I just sought out to get that. Yeah. And that was, I didn't even really care about a career or anything like that. I was just like, I don't need that, because I'll have a husband. By this time, husband. By this time, kids. And just that was what I wanted in my life.
So you gave your life to Jesus about 10 years ago through Vitalpoint Church. Then eventually you started working here, which is amazing. Talk to us a little bit about your wrestling with this singleness. Talk about that process and that journey.
Yeah, I think it just started with just the season of grieving a dream that I had.
Right.
And then coming to this conclusion, and it wasn't really easy. I was alone in it, really felt alone in it. But he was right there, and it was comforting. And I just started to realize that what he had for me was good.
Mm.
And that like singleness wasn't like a punishment
Yeah.
or like something that was like a lack of, but that he actually was offering me something better. So the dream that I had, it was good. It was okay.
Yeah.
But he actually had something even better for me.
Wow.
And that he had an abundant life for me, a full life. And if I wanted to live into that, I could.
Yeah.
And I did, instead of like all like thinking about all of the things that I don't have. I want to think about what he has given me.
Yeah.
Even if that one thing he hasn't given me, but he's given me all these other things, especially himself.
So sorry, my brain is spinning so fast because I've walked some of this with you and been observing this in you. There's something very beautiful about what I've heard you say off camera and now on camera is the wrestling of understanding the abundant life and the source of who God is. But the problem, and I talk about it in this message, is oftentimes people end up in that space of like muddling around in the mud of singleness, and it robs them. You have processed that. You have journeyed through that. Can you talk a bit more about that? Like how you came to this place of just almost rest?
Yeah. Yeah. It took a long time to get to that place. But I think you just have to keep coming back to him. And being reminded of like who you are in him, that he's really the only person that is going to complete you.
Right.
And that, your life of singleness, it really exemplifies the gospel and the sufficiency that we have in Christ. Like not only do we get to exemplify that for other singles, but also in married people or in kids. And like I work with, the kids and the youth, and I feel like that's a big mission that I get to share with them is like, because they're trying to plan their lives, right? Where they're going to go to school or what they're going to do. We might think success looks like this, but the only fulfillment that you're going to have is in him. I think it's just it's continuing to come back to him. It's like the only way that it can happen, where you see the beauty in what he's given you, because it's like an incredible gift and a blessing. And it's like, so I get emotional to even say that. Like when I think about singleness, I don't think about it as sadness anymore. I don't think of it as like there's something missing from my life. I actually think what he gave me was better than what I ever had planned for my life. Like don't have kids myself, but I got lots of kids.
Yes, you do.
Got lots of kids.
And they go home at night.
I go home and I get to sleep, but he's actually given me more. And I think that if we don't like allow ourselves to see that, we're robbing ourselves and we're missing out on what he really wants to give us, which is himself.
Right.
And our calling is to love him and love others. And we can do that through our singleness. We can do that through our marriage or whatever it is. But I think we really do rob ourselves if we just sit and think it's a punishment or he's withholding something from you, or we're just waiting, right? Life will begin when this happens, but life is happening right now, right? He's given life.
I think in the talk, I call it the holding pattern.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll just be in this holding pattern going around and around and around.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe if we sat and just, thanked God for the things that he has blessed us with, we could see that, and that he still wants to use us in this world for a greater purpose. And I said this to you earlier, like I heard in a podcast one day, like what if the gospel goes further today because you're single?
When you said that to me the first time, which was literally just 20 minutes ago, and those who were in the room when you said it, we all gasped. Because that is such a beautiful posture that I've actually witnessed in you, I've seen in you. Never heard it defined like that, but that is such a beautiful example of your heart for what God is doing. One of the things that I wanted to do with this message is to elevate the value and the voice of singles in the life of Vitalpoint Church. And you said something about demonstrating to the people that you lead, and particularly the youth, because in Poplar Hill, you oversee the student ministry there too. You get to exemplify that to them and to show them that the abundant life actually is found in Jesus. Yes, all these other things are great, and absolutely, but there's a power in what you do. So, real quick, we got to wrap this up. Someone's wrestling with their singleness. What would you say to them? Can you look at the camera and tell them?
I'd just say get before the Lord, to sit with Him and to know Him, and what He has for you. That you're not exempt from life abundantly with Him, but that it really it's only Him that is going to give you that. And to just see the beauty and the goodness that He has for you. Singleness is a gift and it is a blessing. And you can share the gospel through it in the life that you live.
Lisa, thank you. I think we've learned a lot about singleness by just your own story. When I think about what we're trying to see happen in the life of our church is that idea of, if you're wrestling with this in singleness, would you just get before God, like she said, and just allow that process to happen, discern it in community. That's the beauty of the church, the body of Christ. It's in community. And it's just really just giving it to Jesus and saying, God, Jesus, what do you have for me in this? And so anyway, it's an important conversation for us as a church in this. And so thank you, Lisa, for doing this.
You're welcome.